is pervasive in American culture. In 2018, there was a survey done of over 6,700 participants, and it showed that over 1/3 of participants visited a doctor within the last year for something stress-related. Also, over 1/2 of participants in this survey claimed to have been paralyzed by stress at some point or have indicated that financial issues. So physical activity engagement has actually been shown to improve stress-related mental health conditions, enhance capacity to cope with stressful encounters, it decreases the subjective stress that you have, and it decreases the colloquium model of health. Is the main facet of it is the sense of coherence. So one sense of coherence is a sort of like a personality trait, but it's a pervasive, enduring, dynamic feeling. So first of all, there's 3 different components. The first is comprehensibility. Comprehensibility basically says that someone sees things in their internal and external environment as structured and understood. Manageability, which is the second component of one's sense of coherence, suggests that one has the demands to offset those stimuli or stressful stimuli in the environment and internally. And finally, meaningfulness. Meaningfulness suggests that the belief that the demands that someone is engaging in are worth engaging in. Okay, so this is adapted from Antonovsky's salutogenic model of health. The model is very complex, but this is adapted for this presentation. And so just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the salutogenic model of health entails. So first thing that's sort of unique about this model is that health is on a continuum over here. So if you notice, health goes from ease to disease. So any sort of successful tension management that one has would suggest that one would move towards the ease side of the continuum. However, any unsuccessful tension management that one has suggests that you move further towards the disease side of the continuum. So as you notice, ease actually contributes back to generalized resistance resources. The further or healthier you are, the more you're able to acquire generalized resistance resources in order to combat stress. Health orientation, Rosenstock in 1960 defined it as a tendency to engage in behaviors that avoid stress. In 1970, Antonovsky and Katz came back and said that health-promoting behaviors such as a healthy sleep pattern, healthy diet, physical activity engagement are all considered health-promoting behaviors, as these behaviors enable one to avoid stress. So, and also, furthermore, engagement in physical activity has been associated with a preventative health orientation, which is a generalized resistance resource. In the literature, there is a lot of literature on the physical activity engagement and sense of coherence, and correlationally it suggests that there is a relationship between the two. There is one study, though, that kind of caught my attention. There's this one study which adopted a cross-legged design, which basically was able to test whether the relationship was unidirectional or reciprocal between sense of coherence and physical activity. So what they found is that physical activity actually predicted sense of coherence after 12 months. However, sense of coherence did not predict physical activity after 12 months. The first thing I wanted to know was, what is the relationship between physical activity and sense of coherence? So first, we're going to be looking at the size, valence, and heterogeneity of it. Secondly, I wanted to know, is there evidence of a unidirectional relationship or a bidirectional relationship between sense of coherence and physical activity? And finally, we're going to be looking at moderators. So what different demographic characteristics or study characteristics actually moderate this relationship between physical activity and sense of coherence? So I did 2 different searches. The first, I did a search of 6 different databases, and as you can see, the search string is above. The search was not limited by language or publication year, and it included research up into June of 2019. I also did manual searches of pertinent review articles that looked at the sense of coherence, and I also looked at the reference lists that were included in articles that actually looked at physical activity and sense of coherence. Also, prominent authors in the field were contacted, so a lot of authors, if they published a lot on physical activity and sense of coherence, they were contacted. And also requests for data, unpublished data, were circulated on listservs at the beginning of this month. So, there are 2 main inclusion criteria. First is that the study measured sense of coherence using the sense of coherence scale. And secondly, the study included some measurement of physical activity engagement. Now, we went ahead and included self-report measures and objective measures of physical activity. We included them whether physical activity and sense of coherence were measured as predictors, outcomes, or both. Here is the sample flow chart. So as you can see, after the searches were done, we had about 1,762 articles. We went through duplicate screening, title screening, and abstract screening, and we had 206 articles to go through for full text screening. At this point, that's kind of where we are. I'm not sure how many we're going to have in the full text screening, but for sure we have at least 28 pieces of data that are going to go into this analysis. So, data collection process. We actually found 70 different articles that did look at the sense of coherence and physical activity. However, there was not any data that we could extract from that article in order to run the correlation on. So we had to email the authors. So out of 70 pieces of information that we needed, we emailed 57 different authors. Out of that, 12 authors could not be contacted for one reason or the other, and 45 were actually contacted successfully. To date, we have a response rate of 42.2%, and we have received 13 pieces out of the 70 pieces of data that I requested. We're going to be assessing quality with the QSSP. The QSSP is a quality assessment checklist for survey studies in psychology, and it's new. And what it is, it's basically just, it looks at introduction, participants, data, and ethics, and sort of gives you a quality score rating of the study itself. And we're going to, we decided to use the correlation as the coefficient to compare all of these. So first we converted everything into effect sizes, then we converted it into a correlation coefficient so that we were able to do the first analysis. Secondly, we went ahead and looked at heterogeneity. So first of all, we're going to be looking at Cochrane's Q and then the I-squared coefficient for that. Step 3, we are going to be examining publication bias. First, we're going to be examining funnel plots, just visually, but also there is a formal test of bias with Egger and Stern's regression test that we will also be utilizing. Finally, we're going to have moderator variables that we're going to test, and I'm thinking that we're going to be able to do that at least with age and gender, but hopefully some other ones as well, depending on how much statistical power I have. Applications that we may be able to come up with. So if physical activity is significantly related to sense of coherence, and if the relationship is bidirectional, then physical activity on its own should be considered a generalized resistance resource in the salutogenic model of health. Therefore, what that would mean is that engaging in physical activity maintains one sense of coherence, and one sense of coherence strength maintains engagement in physical activity. So there's a lot of implications that could come from that, looking at the salutogenic model of health in reference to stress coping and also health outcomes. The direction I wanted to take with this, I want to examine how sense of coherence changes within a day and between days, and the daily impact of physical activity engagement with Fitbit technology in a college population. If physical activity can be utilized to significantly improve sense of coherence, which Antonovsky would suggest is either at least a 10% increase or more, then it has the potential to impact stress coping and success and health outcomes across populations, which has a huge implication for this model. Some of the implications that we could draw from this are that sense of coherence as an outcome in physical activity engagement may be good to look at. So if you're utilizing a physical activity intervention to look at stress or the outcomes of stress, measuring sense of coherence, especially as an outcome, may be really beneficial.